Thank you, Mr. Brown. Um, I have questions in this round for Mr. Gensler, and it's nice to see you again, Mr. Gensler. In some quarters, the SEC has a reputation for being a black hole for innovators. Do you agree that we need to provide more legal clarity through rulemaking and no action letters to innovators in the digital asset space and in the blockchain industry specifically?
Senator, I thank you. I thank you for our conversation in the last week on these matters and others. I do think that technology and markets constantly change and evolve, and that it's important for the SEC to provide guidance and clarity. Sometimes that's a clarity that will be thumbs up, but even if it's thumbs down, it's important to provide that, whether it's through guidance or no action letters, as you mentioned.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but Wyoming was the first in the U.S. to enact consumer protection laws for digital assets, including virtual currency. That happened in 2019. What are some of the ways we can work together to ensure consumer protection for digital assets that doesn't also hamper innovators?
Senator, I was aware. I think that your legislature and governor enacted 13 separate acts in the digital space in Wyoming. I think it's important to protect consumers and investors. One area of consumer protection is around the custody of their funds, digital assets. The actual ownership relies on something called a private key in cryptography, and ensuring that that's really that custody works. And I know Wyoming has looked at that, New York, some other states. I believe actually South Dakota may have as well. I hope I didn't leave out any of the member states. But I think also investor protection, which goes beyond just the custody of assets, but to ensure that these markets are free of fraud and manipulation. And I think that's the greater challenge, frankly, because there has been the markets for some markets usually operating overseas, but some markets have been really rife with fraud and scam. So trying to protect the investors against that fraud and manipulation.
Now, in 2018, you said in front of the House Agriculture Committee that blockchain technology has real potential to transform the world of finance. Could you talk more about how this technology can promote financial inclusion and reduce risk and create new markets?
Well, I think it's already doing some of that right now, that it's been a catalyst for change. Central banks around the globe are really looking at how to provide more inclusive payment structures, more inclusive payment tokens. And so that's in one area as a catalyst for change, but it's also other payment system providers are looking to say, how do we provide payment systems that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at lower cost, both cross-border and domestically. Blockchain technology itself is a shared accounting system, if I might say. And I think that's also led to some new thoughts about how to do trade finance and even medical records technology and the like. So I teach it. I'm neither a maximalist nor a minimalist, but I think that it's really been a catalyst for change in numerous areas.
Well, I have a lot to learn about blockchain itself. My only understanding of it is the application of Bitcoin, but it'll be interesting to see how it's useful in other areas and can be done in a way that actually saves money. I'm going to switch subjects quickly to energy. You've proposed a greater focus on environmental issues as part of your regulatory portfolio. My state of Wyoming's economy is heavily dependent on the energy sector, and our state government revenues especially. Because of that, our state government revenues are declining right now, dramatically declining because of the change in focus in our energy economy. Have you considered the practical impacts on Wyoming's economy by making it more difficult for energy companies to raise capital?
Well, Senator, I think that the disclosure regimes of climate risk that we were discussing earlier actually can be pro-issuer, pro-corporation, and pro-investors. Investors, from time to time, change the information they would want, and what they're just asking for more is about material climate risk, or climate risk that the investors see as material. And I think that can be also pro-issuer, pro-energy company to get some consistency, comparability, some clear rules as to how to do this. Right now, we have a little bit more of a investors are asking for it, and issuers aren't entirely sure how to address all those. So I think it's pro-energy company to do such disclosures.
Thank you, Mr. Gensler. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Chopra. It's nice to see you again. My first question is about usury laws. They've historically been the province of state legislatures. My state of Wyoming even has a usury cap. I, in fact, remember the debate because I was a state legislator at the time. Dodd-Frank prohibits the CFPB from imposing maximum interest charges on consumer credit. Do you agree that the CFPB lacks the authority to impose a usury cap?
So Senator, my understanding is that you're right, that usury caps, interest rate caps, that is primarily the provenance of states. And I believe there's some explicit language in Title 10 of Dodd-Frank that prohibits the CFPB from establishing something like that. I'm happy to look at it more closely if there are more specific questions, but that is my understanding of the law.
Nope, great answer. That's fabulous. Thank you. Now, if confirmed, you will have the honor of being a member of the FDIC board. And Congress has specified that industrial lending companies are entitled to deposit insurance if they have a safe and sound plan of operation. This is the easiest question you'll be asked today. Will you consider the individual merits of each and every application and grant deposit insurance to an ILC with a safe and sound plan of operation?
Yes, I will follow the law when it comes to applications. I will, of course, rely heavily on the FDIC staff. That's their real expertise, but in as much that applications are subject to these laws and regulations, of course, that should be the standard by which they're evaluated by.
Thank you. And my last question, Chairwoman McWilliams was confirmed by the Senate to set the direction of the FDIC. Section 6B of the FDIC bylaws allows 2 members of the FDIC board to call a special meeting of the board. Since you will not be the chairperson of the FDIC board, will you commit not to force votes on matters the FDIC chairwoman has not included on the board's agenda?
So Senator, I'm actually not familiar with these rules of procedure, but I'm happy to take questions for the record on that. Is the question that the chairwoman has a statutory right to call meetings, or, and I apologize if I'm not fully understanding all of it, but I'm happy to take a close look.
Okay, it's a bylaws thing, and you bet I will submit questions for the record. And thank you very much for your time.
Senator. And thank you for meeting.
That's all I have. I get to yield back almost 2 minutes.
Thank you, Senator Lummis.